This week on Trench Life, come along as I catch up with Miami's assistant head coach and the man behind the U's O-line, Alex Mirabal. We break down the Knowles and the Canes in the big ugly spotlight. And what exactly does a good hit sound like? Trench Life starts now. Welcome to Trench Life. In my closet. Hey, what a weekend of football, huh? This game just keeps delivering, and we never know how the weekend will shape up, but I can tell you one thing, there's a game in Tallahassee where records don't matter. It's a historic rivalry, and Miami and Florida State will both have to play their best. And that's where today's Big Ugly Spotlight begins, with the Canes. Miami's done a really nice job in pass protection this year, only 5 sacks allowed, and that's got to happen on Saturday against Florida State. Now, one of the reasons why they do such a good job is they win their one-on-one matchups, but whenever they're facing stunts or blitzes, they do a good job of working together. Now, here Florida's going to run what's called a fire zone. You only bring 4, but you show 5, so you're trying to create chaos, but you need to do it in a safe way. So they're also going to run a stunt on this side and loop the nose all the way around, hoping to free him up by causing some confusion on these guys here, but Miami picks it up pretty clean. Now run it once in full speed and then go back and show you the details that allowed this clean pocket and simple pitch and catch. Now the key that starts this whole thing is going to be right here, the center. All right, if you're James Brockemeyer, you got to know that this guy wants to get to the quarterback. He's got the shortest, most direct route. So if he's not going right away, something might be up. And that's exactly what happens here. See how 91's kind of flashing his hands a little bit about what's going on? He's called a sugar rush. And the second the center feels that, boom, you see his head snap right there? He looks. He knows the penetrator's coming. And that's exactly what's happened. So he can't get picked. It's the guard's job to carry 94 to the center so that he doesn't get picked, because the guard's going to want to loop around, hit the tackle, and slide him off as this looper comes, and that's the way it's drawn up on paper. But as we know, football's not drawn or played on paper, and what's going to happen next is pretty interesting. So boom, the tackle has won one-on-one. This tackle over here is won one-on-one. So that means that it's up to this guard right there, old Matt McCoy, to be able to track this looper to come around to make sure that he doesn't get Carson Beck so that he can step up and have that clean pocket. Once again, in real time. Boom, boom, bam. Oh, man it up, slide around. That's unusual. You usually want to pass it off, but it shows you the athleticism and the wherewithal of this offensive line to pick up what could cause confusion to be a simple pitch and catch to Malachi Toney. Miami, wrong for this, but I present to y'all the Mona Lisa of goal line plays. We just gonna line up and take a time warp to the full house backfield. We gonna Uncle Jesse this suck up in here, run behind Markel Bell. Ring my bell, ring my bell, my bell. Move the pile, pile. Man, what you doing, Miami? You wrong for this, man. This is Florida, the Gators. What you thinking? What you doing? They thinking, I'm moving the damn pile. We need this touchdown right here is what we need, and they get it. The mindset of this unit is to bludgeon people. Now, they got about 180-plus yards on almost 50 carries, so it was about 4 yards per carry and 3 touchdowns. So it wasn't easy running against a stout front seven of Florida. So now comes Florida State. But they take this mindset in there, and this is what it's about. If you're a young player looking at this, it's all gummed up. If you're a defensive coordinator, look, every gap is canceled, right? There's nowhere to run. You got to make your way. Find a way or make it. And here Miami makes it and gets a touchdown, and it's that attitude that's going to help them, and they're going to need it against Florida State. Plays like that show you that Miami can really move the pile and be physical, and they're going to have to continue to do that if they want to beat the Seminoles. Now, let's take a look at Florida State. If Florida State wants to beat Miami, they have got to run the football. Now, the good news is they're really good at it. Here they're going to be running a zone read concept against a 6-man box. Now, what that means is you're going to have a tackle that's here one-on-one. The tight end's going to arc here. These two are going to combination block up to this backer. These two are going to combination up to this backer. Now, what that means is this backside defensive end has to get body presence, because if not, he's going to come and make the tackle, because the tight end here, he's going to run out and loop and be a lead blocker. But the back is going to get the ball, be patient, and come inside what ends up being the key block here by Adrian Medley. That's where we should be keeping our eyes. Boom. So right there, it seems like it's kind of a stalemate, right? You see the direction of Medley's body. It's right here. You'd want him a little bit more square, but you're playing against a defensive lineman that's strong. But the thing that you love when you look in here is that Medley looks armless from behind. That's because his elbows are inside, which gives him tremendous leverage. He's also got a lower pad level than the defender, so you have this nice natural running lane that's being able to be created here, but we've seen that this defender is trying to squeeze that hole. He needs to cancel that gap, so it's important that Medley accelerate his feet on contact, so that once that back squirts through right there and the defensive lineman lets go of the block to try to make the tackle, that Medley accelerates his feet right there and allows him to push the pile. So when you can occupy defensive linemen, sometimes it's not about dominating them. Sometimes it's about occupying them and putting enough strain on them so that when it comes time and they think they've got the tackle, they don't, and it ends up being a 5-yard gain. This is going to be a counter play that gets its name because the back steps away from the intended direction that he's going to run and then counters back to the other way, and they're hoping to create a running lane here. The way that they do that is they pull the backside guard towards the play side, and what's going to happen is this is the forced defender, so he's coming here trying to set a wall, so it's going to be up to the backside guard, Richie Leonard, to be able to kick him out. Then following Leonard is going to be Gunnar Hansen. He's going to come and follow this wall and take what's probably going to be the play side backer that's going to scrape over here. Let's take a look. So on the snap of the ball, boom, they hit the wall. Here you have Richie Leonard is going to be able to block out the force guy. You've got to have your head on a swivel if you're Gunnar Hansen, because this backer is going to taught to scrape really tight off that tight end and meet that in the hole to be able to try to create a mess and put stuff on fire in there. But that ain't going to happen, y'all, because Florida State does a good job, bam, of creating that hole, and that's exactly what you want. Boom, you get the kick out there. You get to do a great job of getting the tackle that's coming by and doing a really good job of kicking him out. You've got the wall that's been built this backside, and you have tremendous running room for your back to get up inside. And this is one of the bread and butter plays that Florida State's going to have to run against a much better front than they saw against Virginia. So this week we get to see who wants it more. Can Florida State bounce back from that overtime upset by Virginia and pull off their own second field storm of the season? Or is it Carson Beck's time, baby? Does Miami's magical season continue? Well, earlier this week I caught up with assistant head coach and offensive line coach Alex Mirabal. And after our chat, you really get the feeling that things are different this year in Coral Gables. Joining me now is a coach who's been in the trenches from coast to coast, and now he's leading one of the nastiest units in the ACC, Miami's offensive line coach, Alex Mirabal. And Alex, I got a simple question for you. Power, counter, or duo? What's God's play?
Duo.
Explain yourself.
Duo. Well, I think because of the fact that the matchup between a fullback and a defensive end is not necessarily always good. So, and sometimes when you, and don't get me wrong, I love power now. I love power. But when you pull guys, you open up lanes and gaps for people to be able to run through, as opposed to when you run duo, it's more of a wall, of double teams. So, and that's why I think in the NFL and in college football, you're seeing a lot more people run duo. But duo is, what do they say? Duo is power without a puller, right? So when you can just run power too and just block it up the same way,
You had 4 guys, I believe, that came back that have over 500 snaps last year. How much easier does it make it for your life when you're teaching technique and toughness to a group that kind of already knows what the level of expectation and what your voice is?
You could be a lot more advanced in terms of what you're teaching them, that they can They can take on a lot more volume, in terms of schematically. Schematically, we're able to be a lot broader, not only from a run game standpoint, but also from a protection standpoint, you know, because it doesn't phase them, right? They've been there, they've done that. The one transfer portal kid that we got is a veteran center. So he wasn't with us, but he brought those snaps with him from TCU, you know? So those guys, they could take on a lot greater volume. You know what I'm saying? And what it was able to do, Aaron, I was able to focus more on, okay, on the finishing aspect, on the chasing aspect. I tell them, there's 130. I don't know how many. I think there's like 136 Division One offensive lines in the country, right? Well, what are we? What are we going to do to separate ourselves to make us different, right? Well, it's how you play, right? How we choose to play O line.
What made coaching Panay Sewell so easy?
Man, you know what? Two things. First of all, from a physical standpoint, his leg power, which is your horsepower, is second to none. Aaron, it was right away. Coach Cristobal used to call him autocorrect. I mean, he would have to see things one time and it was over, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of times that we're playing. I think it was game 3 his freshman year as a true freshman, and we're playing Stanford, and we run a reverse the entire week in practice. Panay is going to be an open B gap. You're going to climb. You're going to pin the backside backer. Well, hell, we call the play. There's a 3 technique. They brought cross plug, so they were crossing in the B gap. He shoves the 3. He takes the first linebacker, throws him, picks up the second guy, and runs him out the back of the end zone. We never practiced that, right? And I said, Panay, he goes, Coach, I just saw it. So it was one of those things where and that's why I think that's why he's who he is, right? And if he continues on this trajectory, he'll probably be a Hall of Fame guy.
He's got down below, but he's also got the right mentality, and you know that because there's been a zero drop-off in what he's done with the Detroit Lions. And every Sunday, man, he's a gold jacket guy for sure. Barring injury,
Yeah.
knock on wood, if he can stay
No
healthy,
doubt.
he's going to be a great one. And that's really what I've only seen from Coach Cristobal and you and your offensive lines is a level of physicality that is for, I mean, it's a dying breed. You just don't see it as much now because, to our point, teams, I believe, are trying to scheme their way out of things and getting rid of the football quickly. And the RPO world has made play worse, not better, in my opinion, in certain circumstances. But you've been able to maintain that physicality. How?
Yeah. You know what? First of all, I personally believe that, like we're talking about Panay and the Detroit Lions. I think Panay went to a perfect situation in college with a head coach who walks into fistfights, right? Who walks into physicality. I think he went into a perfect situation with Dan Campbell with the Detroit Lions. There's another guy who walks into fistfights, walks into physicality, right? And so I truly believe that your football team takes on the personality and the persona of your head football coach, right? So that's something that at Miami, it's blasphemy if anybody ever says we're finesse, right? That ain't happening, right? Or that we're a trick operation. That's not going to happen with Coach Cristobal as a head football coach, right? So that's just the way he is. That's the way he demands that we play the game of football. And then you got to recruit guys that are about that life. You got to demand it. You got to demand it. And, our running backs run hard. They run angry. We try to block hard. We try to block angry. And it's contagious. Aaron, if we don't do that at practice, our D-line will whoop us. You know what I'm saying? So it starts at practice. At practice, we get after each other. Physically, we try to finish each other. We try to, the defense, the ball's thrown. They're trying to, the D linemen are trying to, retrace and get to the ball. Well, our job, no, we're not going to let you get to the ball, right? We're going to deter you from finishing, right? That's our job. Joe Moore's definition of blocking is to take a man from point A to point B against his will, right? Well, our job, and I tell them like this, our job is to block the defenders. Their job is to get off blocks, right? Don't let them get off the block. That's our job, right? So we work in the run game, and to me, it's a technique. We work in the run game. So I'm blocking you, Aaron, right? And you see the ball. Well, how are you going to get off the block?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to try to rip off the block? Are you going to try to arm over? Well, my job is not to let that happen. So if I'm blocking you and you try to rip off my block in a run, I'm going to try to rip your rip to keep you blocked because that's my job. Because
Yep.
that's my job. And I think what it does, it creates an edginess, right, to how you're blocking, right? Not everybody's Quentin Nelson. You know what I'm saying? Not everybody's Quentin. Not everybody's like that.
No, they're
But
not.
no, but if you teach them the technique on how to finish, on how to chase in the pass game, and you demand it of them, then even if the guy's not like that, well, guess what? You got no choice. You better be doing that, you know? And so that's kind of where we've taken the program with Coach Cristobal. And, we also do some stuff, and this is a Jim Harbaugh deal, right? Where you can RPO yourself into being a finesseful football team.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to have things where we call it just run it runs, right? Where it's a run play and everybody's blocking and we're handing the damn thing off, you know. And I personally believe that's how Coach Harbaugh changed Michigan, where okay, we ain't doing the RPO now. If we call a run, we're gonna run the thing. And there's a lot of a mindset to that too, and you watch Michigan even today with Sharon Moore, and he done a hell of a job. He's an O-line guy,
Mm-hmm.
right? He's an O-line guy, and those guys take on that persona. The program does. They're under center. They use 2-3 tight ends. They'll go 4 tight ends when it's short yardage. That's a mindset. That's a mindset. And so we admire those type of programs, and we hope that we're held in the same regard.
Well, I know you're on the road recruiting at an undisclosed location. And we have a lot of young players that watch this show. What message would you have to them to help them understand what it takes to not only play college football, but maybe specifically what it is you're looking for players to bring into your room?
The effort that they play with, the toughness that they play with, the finish that they play with, because they control all of that, right? We get, Aaron, and I tell this to like, for instance, our right tackle. There's 136 Division I right tackles. What makes you different? Okay, because NFL scouts are watching. What makes you different? Right? There's 136 Division I centers. James Brockermeyer. What makes you different? Right? So you better play different to be able to stand out to those guys that are watching your tape. Right? Same thing with a high school kid. Right? We get all these. Videos and links and stuff like that. Well, how are you playing that makes you different from the other guy? So I think that's important. One of the other things, Aaron, that I really believe in is you got to practice and you got to play with confidence.
I love that, Alex. Start the fight, have a plan, trust your technique, right? Yep. That was probably Joe Moore's superpower, was belief. And when I put this award together and started looking into it, the process went like this. First, he believed in us. Then we believed in his belief. And finally, we believed in ourselves. And once that happened, dudes had problems. We dominated. And the way that we developed that belief was doing the simple things over and over and over. It's through repetition. It was through base blocking. It was the boring, mundane stuff, not so that we could get it right, so that we couldn't get it wrong. And there was never a game or an opponent that when we walked up to the line of scrimmage, we didn't think it was going to be 2nd and 6 at a minimum, or that we would walk out of that stadium victorious, or that we would finish that drive and chew clock, or that we would find a way to score with 1:15 left, and we had to give the quarterback a little bit more time to be able to move the ball down the field, or whatever the situation called for. And really, good coaches are good teachers. And you have to be from that standpoint. And what you just laid out for the younger players is tremendous, because it allows them to go from good to great, or to be different.
And the greatest gift that a teacher or a coach can give a player or a student is the gift of believing in them. It's the greatest thing that you can do.
One of the players, or one of the people rather, that believed in you was Mario Cirstobal. You guys were high school teammates. And there's got to be at least a story or two from your time when you guys were lined up next to each other and on the same team that you can share. And feel free to bust his stones. That would be very welcome.
Coach and I met May of freshman year in high school, which was, now, that's like 1985. We've known each other over 40-something years, right? And just we're like-minded people. We were came from the same type of family background, both from immigrant parents. That it was all about work, and just about uh, teaching us work ethic and how to uh, how to be good people, good human beings, right? But never to back down. Always to believe in yourself, and always to believe in, really, it's going to sound corny, but the American dream, right? The fact that you can achieve whatever you set your mind towards achieving. You know what I'm saying? And the way he runs his football program, the way he was as a freshman in high school, the way he was as a sophomore in high school, he was never given he was never given anything. He fought for everything he's had in his life, and he's never forgotten that. He's never forgotten his roots, right? And to me, that's why he's had the success that he's had as a head football coach, because he's always been true to himself and who he is. My goal is to help him win a championship. That's my goal, to help him win a championship. That's the only reason why I do what I do, because with it is personal with me and him, right?
Yeah.
It's beyond a professional relationship. That's my brother. I've got his back. I know he has my back, and I also know that because of our friendship, I need to work. In my mind, when I get to work every day, I got to be the best assistant on the staff. I've got to be the hardest worker on the staff. My group has to be the best group in our program, because I can't let him down, right? And because I know that there's always people out there thinking that I have my position only because of our relationship. So I always try to do my job to the fullest and as an elite level as possible, so that I never put him in a bad spot, right?
Yeah.
So that's always been my deal with him, and I've always, it's been awesome. It's been an awesome ride, and he's allowed me to provide my family with a better life, so I owe him. And I'm grateful for that, and I'm indebted to that. And the way I pay him back is by helping shape our program in his image and in his like, right? And so that's what we're doing, man.
I love it, brother. And your track record speaks for itself to that. And I heard some emotion coming up, and I won't turn this into an Oprah
Yeah,
interview,
yeah,
but football's a people game. And I think people don't understand and fully appreciate it. And the fans have the right to be fanatical. That's where they get their names from.
absolutely.
But the things that we miss aren't Thursdays. It's not even Tuesday pay. Well, I shouldn't say that. I got 3 kids about to go to college. Tuesday payday in the NFL was pretty great.
Yeah.
But it's the relationships, man. And this is a sport that demands everything you have. You can't half-ass anything about this sport. So to find people that are loyal, that can trust, that believe in you, and I'm getting tingles right now talking about, and have the ability to be able to give that back to somebody in just even the smallest of ways, to me, is what makes this game the greatest sport on the planet.
And no doubt. And we have at Miami, we have probably about 4 or 5 guys in different roles on our staff that we started together with Coach Cristobal on January 1st of 2007 at FIU. We want to help Coach bring the University of Miami back to where we feel the University of Miami should be at.
The next step of being able to bring that national championship back to Green Tree is a game against Florida State. You had a chance probably to look at them a little bit on film. What does your unit need to do, and what sort of challenges do they present where you guys are going to have to be at your best to lead the charge?
Well, first of all, you have to go on the road, right? So when you go on the road, you better pack your leadership, pack your focus, pack your physicality, your toughness, all that stuff, right? I mean, I have a tremendous amount of respect for. Last year was a blip on the radar for Coach Norvell, right? I mean, and he went and revamped both sides of the football right there, and they've done a great job with Coach Malzahn on the offensive side and Coach Tony White on the defensive side. And what they do offensively is different than everybody else that we've played to date, right? And what they do defensively is different, from a schematic standpoint. They're multiple fronts, and they play with those 3 safeties, which are hard to get to. It'll be fun. It'll be a great atmosphere, and I think when Florida State, Miami, Notre Dame, Penn State, when all those types of programs, Ohio State, when they're all good, that's good for college football, right? So it's good that we're going to go up to Tallahassee, and the game's going to mean a lot to both programs.
From the outside looking in, this season feels different. From the inside, does it feel the same?
Offensively, it feels the same because offensively, all the assistant coaches are back, right? We have a good amount of guys that came back from last year, so it kind of just feels the same in terms of that standpoint, right? I know we've got Carson Beck now instead of Cam Ward at quarterback. Our offense has taken on a lot of his personality in terms of, Carson's very even keeled. Carson is very efficient. Carson is very move on to the next play kind of mentality. Cam was very loud. Cam was very explosive. Cam was very animated, and our offense took on that personality as well. So it's that part of it is really cool to me. Our defense, man, our defense is different now. Our defense is different. I think that's where you're seeing it. You're seeing our defense, the physicality, the swarming of the football.
That's one of the areas that I saw it as different. And Ruben, bane of my existence on that damn interception he had, man, like that was an effort play. Like you stop the film after the heel kicks the ball and he catches the interception. There's like 11 white hats in the damn video, man. It's crazy, like swarming to the football. And that, like, you put it on tape, you either coach it or you allow it. But there's something to be said when you have the entire team that plays the same way. That's who they are. And then it becomes easy because you don't have to push. In some cases, you got to say, whoa, versus giddy up. And that's always a great place to be.
Yeah.
And that even-keeledness that you mentioned will come in really handy against FSU, which is just a chaos-filled rivalry. Having that sort of level-headedness with that, win at all costs, swarm to the football mentality, that's a hell of a combination.
Yeah, and you know what? The one thing too that some teams we're not stuck on, like, we're okay winning 10-7, right? And I think a lot of people are more into a lot of people. I'm telling you, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of fans throughout the world that they would rather lose 49-42 than win 10-7, and miss me with that. Miss me with that. To me, it's whatever it takes, and if we got to throw the ball 62 times in a game to do it, let's roll. If we got to run the ball, like when we played Florida, we ran for more yards than we threw for. So what? We won. Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? The week before, Carson threw for 380 something yards. Awesome. So to me, it's more of a pro NFL mentality in our program where we're willing to get into those kind of games if we have to. And that's perfectly fine.
Well, I'm pleased to be joined by a very good and dear friend, Greg Hudson, who was my GA back in the day at Notre Dame, inside Joe Moore's offensive line room. He then left to go on a world tour of coaching and ended up being a defensive coordinator for many years and had a brief stint at Notre Dame as a defensive coordinator. So he's in a unique position where he's not only coached the position at the highest level on the offensive side of the ball, but also been tasked as a defensive coordinator to be able to defend big physical offensive lines. So we thought it'd be a really good idea to get together and talk about what that looks like, because we took a summer tour. And Greg, we were sitting there talking as we were walking around campuses, and you said to me, you can hear good blocks. What'd you mean by that?
Well, I'm a baseball guy at heart. So when you're on the baseball field and a guy's warming up, you know if you're facing a good pitcher because you can hear the sound of that mitt on a pitch that's just right and hitting the glove right. When you watch a guy take BP or a guy hitting a game, you can tell before it gets outside of the stadium that it's a home run just by the way it sounds. You can also tell when it's not a good hit because he's hitting it not on the sweet spot with the right technique, the right mechanics, and he's got a broken bat from hitting it on too far on the inside, or he splinters the bat and it sounds terrible when you hit it off the end. It's no different in a golf swing. You can hear a bad shot every time. And people see baseball and golf all the time, but they don't get a chance to get up close in football to hear that sound. I can hear it because I've heard it thousands of times. Even in diving, You can hear a great dive that's a 10 because you can't hear it. There's no splash. You can hear a bad dive because it sounds like a cannonball. So it equates into point of contact, aiming point, technique. I thought in particular at Iowa, that was the first time that when they started blocking Mike, right away I went, ooh, that sounded different. And it wasn't helmet on helmet. I don't think it's the helmet. I think it's actually when the helmets do not connect in that landmark and where the eyes are supposed to be. When they make contact against the defender, that's when you can hear a good block.
So let's define that. What is a good block? What is the goal? If you're a true freshman offensive lineman walking into Coach Moore's room, what are you being taught?
First, you're being taught the analogy of what it's like to get in a football position, get in the right stance, and push a car.
When I first started coaching, people actually taught this. Now, I'm not too damn bright, but I knew that was wrong. The reason why I knew that was wrong was I grew up, it snowed, and the cars would get stuck. If you got behind a car and tried to push a son of a bitch like this, it wasn't going to move. So every time I pushed a car, I got like this and I pushed it. I said, how the hell can I block somebody, which is no more than pushing?
And then you're going to know the position you need to be in and how to use your leverage. You're also taught that the game's used with the top of your shoulder pad. I don't think that term's used enough. I think people are really focused in on maybe the hands at times a little too much and have them in different positions. So using the top of the shoulder pad creates that image in your head that I've got to get down low in a position. And that's where the contact, actually when the top of the pad hits the top of the pad of the defender, that's where I believe the loudest point of impact is.
It's interesting because being a young high school player and talking to young high school players and training those guys in the off season, so much of what they're focused on is making contact in that big first powerful step to really get into that defensive lineman. I know that certainly was the bane of my existence and the basis of a lot of my missed blocks because that first step was so big. But what people don't understand is that the defenders want separation. So if you go helmet to helmet, you're actually helping them do their job so they can press off and then escape and make a tackle. And that's what was really different with what Coach Moore and what, Coach Ferentz and just that whole lineage of people with bad rad coming all the way down the pipe was to use that top of the pad and get pad under pad, not from an up and down level. That's important too. But to your point, the top of the pad was really the backside knee and shoulder. That's where you block people with your second step. The first one just gets you going. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I think the key, and especially at Iowa when we watch practice, I heard it also because the guy they're going against on defense, if it's not a very good player and he's got awful technique, it's going to be hard to hit the top of his pad. You may be hitting him in the numbers because he's standing straight up in the air. So it's not a bad block if you're getting your job done against a guy with poor technique. But the key to that, I think we said it right there. I said, man, the key to this drill is the defender, to give him the look of what it's like going against a strong, solid, in a defensive line position and holding point and giving ground, grudgingly, as Coach Holtz used to say, against the offense to make it work. And I even think not only could you hear it, but you can instantly see that's a good drill because of how fluid what the two guys working together were. And it stood out to me without a doubt.
We spent some time in Iowa, and Iowa's maybe as direct of a lineage underneath Kirk Ferentz, who played high school football for Coach Moore, of the familiarity of what a belief in the basics looks like. And one of the things we noticed with George Barnett, their offensive line coach, was that, A, they weren't hitting sleds, but when they were in individual and practicing base blocks, the rule was drive them 10 yards or until they're on their back. You get them on the back at 6 yards, no problem, but the goal was a pancake or to drive through 10 yards. And we saw a direct connection and correlation between that and what took place on the field as compared to some other teams that maybe only went 8 yards or 6 yards or 3 yards in a couple cases. Explain what we saw there.
I think you saw a direct correlation of how good your offensive line's going to be, and if the line's only going 6 yards, then you might only win 6 games. That's how I sometimes look at those things. That everything equates to winning. The other thing is that I got from a guy I worked with that I paid attention to as we were going Glenn Mason always said at Minnesota, if it doesn't have to do with talent, we should be the absolute national champs at it. And that's what Iowa was doing. If it doesn't, you don't need to have 5-star talent to do the little things the right way and go 10 yards in a drill. That's effort and attitude, the two things the player controls. I thought it really stood out when they carried over to inside drill and then the team. I watched how the tempo of the blocks were when it was a much not more intense, but a live period, so to speak. And even when we saw some scrimmage work by some of the teams, you watched who was going, trying to get to 10 yards, which you might not block a guy really very many times 10 yards downfield in a game situation. But if you go back and watch the film of the winner of the award last year, I'm going to say that Army blocked for 10 yards in practice is going to be my guess, and I have not seen them because they were blocking for 10 yards a lot in games.
I'm curious how you would have attacked me. You knew me more than anybody. Probably involved Krispy Kreme and maybe some pizza, but how would you have attacked your boy AT knowing that I was a mental head case back in the day?
Really, I'd have played a tight 5 technique on you, and I would have got my hands on you as fast as I could. I just wanted to take you. I would want to take you out of the game to get to the second level. You're going to block me on the line of scrimmage, but I was going to absorb you, and I was going to and know that we had somebody on you right now in a tight, heavy technique, always thinking that I was going to slant. Always thinking that I was going to slant. Maybe the first 2 plays of the game I would slant, but I wouldn't get wide in college and try to speed rush you. Because you had good, you could play your left tackle in a right-handed stance. Let's call it what it is. It was pretty good. That's not many people do that.
Not that I could. I had to.
You had to. You made up for it by doing the opposite of what everybody else did. But it worked.
Contrarian, bro.
It worked against Willie McGinnis for daggone it. But yeah, I would have to occupy you quick to not let you go create more problems, and that was it.
It's funny, man. We ran the veer in high school, so on the backside of veer as a tackle, our job was to block the free safety, right, to get out in front of the pitch. Like it wasn't a playoff where you just wall off and catch your breath. Yeah. You get on your horse and go. So I remember when I got to Notre Dame as a freshman, like the rule of thumb is if you don't know what to do, hit somebody, right? Just give effort. So I was going to make sure that no matter what, I was going to run downfield and smack somebody. And as my career developed, I kind of used that as a wash tool. Like if I had a bad play or gave up a tackle for loss or a sack or did something wrong in MA, which was rare but happened, like as long as I could get a peel-off block downfield and knock somebody in the dirt and get a hustle play, then it was a wash. Then I was good. It was like in my mind, it was like, okay, I gave up one, but I got me one back. But that's that effort that we're talking about, right? So I was lucky that I got brought up in a football system that encouraged that because honestly, towards the end of my career, that's really what kept me alive and at least kept me sane because I would think things that my body just simply wasn't capable of doing. Well, we'll do it again. We've got some pretty fun things planned this spring with an RV tour. My favorite name for it would be the Summer Sausage or Meat Wagon Tour. It's getting shot down across the board for whatever reason by lots of folks, but the bottom line is we'll still have some fun going on the road and do O-line things, watching big dudes move other big people, man.
Put trench life on that damn bus.
That's probably a much better choice. Oh, look at you. You made it all the way to the end, grinding through like it's play 18 to 9-on-7. So pancake that subscribe, smash that like button, and pull around the corner to share this with your buddy. Trent's life rolls best when the whole crew's in the huddle.